I want to go on to part 2 of the survival mapping is what I'm calling it. Okay, because it has to do with terrain mapping in your neighborhood, home terrain mapping in your home, and health terrain mapping for your health. Taking stock of where you are physically and then doing something to make that better all the time. Health is one of those things you never ring the bell. You never get to the point where you can go, okay, I'm in shape. I'm all done with that. I'll go on to something else now. No, it's a constant process. It's like weeding a garden. The weeds never stop coming. You just got to keep pulling them out. That health terrain mapping is part 3 of the talk I did last time. Now, let's go to part 4. Part 4 has to do with getting involved in your local church and getting your church to focus, at least in part, on helping the people around them in their most critical time of need. See, there are a lot of churches out there who on Sundays, they're a bustling place, man. There's thousands of people that come to the church to hear the pastor preach and the choir sing and to send their kids off to Sunday school. And then at noon on the dot, man, they are out of there and they're off to the Mexican restaurant. I've been one of those. And then from noon on Sunday to 10 a.m. on the next Sunday, that place is deader than a hammer. What I'm saying is that many churches are really just a country club where people get together on Sundays. And what we have to do is we have to encourage our churches to not be that way, to be the church all week long. And there are many churches that are vibrant and living, and they are the church all week long. You just got to find one of those. But if your church isn't one of them, then rather than leave, maybe you should stand up on a Sunday morning and say, hey, we're not really helping people the rest of the week. There's a hurricane that just hit North Carolina really bad, and Georgia is mostly without power. How come we haven't sent anybody out there to help them? There's a whole bunch of single mothers in our neighborhood, right around our church. How come we don't have an outreach to them? There's a bunch of pregnant women or women that just had a baby or people that just had surgery, and they could use maybe some meals brought to them to help them out when they're laid up in bed. How come we don't have a program to do that? See, the churches that I've belonged to have had those programs, and that's one of the ways the churches grow. If you want your church to grow, you need to get out of the 4 walls of your church and you need to start helping the people in your neighborhood. For example, we had a men's group at one of the churches that I belonged to one time, and we would get together on Thursday nights, and a bunch of men get together at the church, and we'd sit around and talk about how to be better men. And what it ended up being was just sit around and make you feel bad for not spending more time with your family and putting a more priority on spending time with your wife and your kids and helping them out and that kind of thing. And finally, one time, I just stood up in the thing and I said, guys, first of all, this men's group feels to me like it was designed by women. Like, hey, let's get together and chatter at the church every Thursday night. And oh, by the way, because we're coming here every Thursday night, we're not with our families, we're not with our wives, so we're actually counterproductive here. We're trying to motivate each other to spend more time with our families, and we're taking each other away from our families to do it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense here. So how about this? This Saturday, let's all get together in the church parking lot and bring your kids, bring your sons at least. And we're going to hold an auto fair for single mothers in our neighborhood. We're going to put out flyers. We're going to make phone calls. If you know any single mothers, people you work with, ladies that are in the church, whatever, call them and say, hey, bring your car down to the church on Saturday morning, and we're going to change your oil for you for free. And we're just going to do an oil change clinic down here, because there are a lot of these women that don't have a man in their life who can change their oil on a regular basis. And let's be of service. Bring your sons and you can train them how to change the oil in a car. So you get 2 for 1. You're spending time with your kids and we're helping out the community. And so we did that. And man, the women came in droves. They were lined up down the street. We were changing their oil. And you know what happened? A lot of guys, as they were looking at these women's cars, they were like, holy cow, look at the tires on this car. This poor woman, she's elderly and her husband died 6 years ago and she doesn't have anybody to take care of her car for her. She's been driving the wheels right off this car. Tell you what, keep her busy for a while and we'll be right back. And they would jump in her car and take it down the street to a local tire shop and they'd put new tires on her car for her and bring it back. And so they actually did a whole lot more. And what it did was it brought us together as a men's group, but it also brought us closer to our sons. And it also helped the single women who needed men in their lives. And it also made the men realize just how vital a man is in a family. That, man, we're important. We're necessary. And so it worked really well. So that's what I'm saying. That is what the church should look like. And so it showed guys just how vital they are. It helped the women. It gave us time to spend with our boys doing purposeful work. And it actually made us understand how important our role in the family is. That's a trifecta right there. This is what the church ought to look like, in my opinion. Now, let's apply this to the upcoming elections, all right? And the craziness that may take place around the elections or in any other time. Like I said, we're seeing a lot of disaster right now in North Carolina, in Georgia, because of the storm that went by. Some of you that are watching have been affected by that. Let's see how we can apply this to being prepared, to getting our church prepared to be the church in any situation, but especially in the situations where people are in need. Philippians 2:4 says, let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. And I believe that's what it's talking about, is that we should be prepared to help people when they're in need. We should not just work to provide for our own selves and our own families. The Bible says that a person who won't provide for his own family is worse than an unbeliever, but we should also be prepared to help others in times of need. Now, our modern infrastructure is really fragile. Our infrastructure would be very easy to disrupt. And if it gets disrupted, whether it's a hurricane, a blackout, civil unrest, these things are becoming more frequent. And so we should be prepared as a church to come to the aid of people in times like that, when things go sideways. Proverbs 22:3 says, the prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple just go blundering on and suffer for it. I added a little there. That's the Chuck Holton version. Proverbs 6:6-8 talks about the value of being prepared like the ant who stores up food for the future. It says, go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief officer or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. So as followers of Christ, we should be prepared. We should, as a body, not just as individuals, yes, as individuals, but also as a body, we should be prepared for good works, which includes preparing for disasters. Titus 3:14 says, let our people learn to devote themselves to good works so as to help cases of urgent need and not be unfruitful. I came up with the idea to start a dedicated team at our church to respond in times of crisis. It interfaces with the security team at your church. If you don't have a security team at your church, that's like step one. Like, you really need a security team, especially with all of the craziness that's going on these days. This is how the church grows. You push out from the four walls and help people in the community. You get a communications officer. That's very important, because if you think about if the church is going to serve this function, they're part of the community and they can see the needs up close and personal. And then they can find a way to quickly get somebody over there to meet that need. So if, for example, your house got flooded, a local church can move in literally hours after the waters recede and can bring a team of people from your neighborhood who know you, who maybe work with you, have seen you around at the grocery store, and can move right in and start ripping the carpet out of your house, ripping the walls out, and fixing it. And you can help them help you, and that you have ownership in this. You're just not getting a check from some faceless entity. It's just a much better way to do it. And lastly, we need a church liaison, I think, to go out and assist other churches with networking together so that we're not the only church that has to carry all the load. I think that this should be something that we should evangelize to other churches about, and have a church liaison that goes out and meets with the pastors of other churches in our areas and says, hey, we would like to establish this network of churches to help in times of need. Would you be a part of our citywide grace project? Churches need to lead in times of crisis and not follow. So when disaster strikes, no matter what causes it, people are going to look for hope and help. And this is something that we're going to have to flesh out. All right, God bless you. Thank you very much for watching. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.